Welcome to our podcast, Proper Cup of Tea, the show where you can put your feet up and have a good old natter. Thank you for tuning in today. We're going to unwind, relax, and have a nice cup of tea.
Good morning and welcome to the Spark Proper Cup of Tea podcast. And today we have with us
Claire.
And my name is Sandie from Spark Community Space, and our very special guest star is, introduce yourself.
I'm Laura. I live locally and I run the business Sort Store Style, which specialises in decluttering, storage solutions, and then also interior design. So the full package.
Wonderful. I love a sort out and a declutter. Absolutely. It's one of my very favourite things to do.
Always lovely to meet a kindred spirit.
Absolutely. So what started you on the path of doing this?
I think this is probably something I've been doing since I was about 9 or 10 years old. It's a lifelong passion. But when I was probably 15, 16, I used to go and stay with aunties and help them with their children, and very early on discovered that actually what was really helpful for busy parents was having someone to come in and help and organise and declutter and sort through the spices that perhaps had expired about 6 years ago. We're older than the children. It's kind of really gone from there.
That's really cool. That's really cool. And sometimes it takes that somebody looking at it from outside, the sort of like being in it, to figure out where everything's going to go. Claire, do you like a declutter?
I do, but then it's getting time. So I've got to be in that mood where I'm thinking, right, it's enough is enough now, and it's bugged me. And then I've got to get in the zone, loud music on.
Cool.
And then I can do it once I get in the zone.
Wonderful. So what advice do you give people who say that they haven't got time to do a declutter?
So I think there are lots of different ways. I always try and say it's a little bit like a marathon. If you were running a marathon, you wouldn't go for a run that was 26 miles long on your first day. So the idea of tackling clutter or stuff in your house is something that you can chip away at. So if you just had 10 minutes, and most people can find 10 minutes in a day, there are little pockets that you could sort through. So whether that's sorting through your fridge, sorting through your freezer, sorting through your knife and fork drawer, if you just picked one small section at a time, it's amazing how much you can achieve. And that sense of satisfaction, and it's almost like you're then training your brain because you get into that organised mindset. Little bits, chip away.
Wonderful. Because on TikTok you can get these sort of like timetables of once a week I'll do a bathroom, do you advise sort of like something set and regimented like that, or is it much more free form?
So I have designed various sort of checklists. So I normally say 10 or 20 minutes, and you could do it every weekday. And then by the end of the month, you would have done 20 different tasks.
Wonderful.
And so those sorts of things work really well. But equally, most people know where the bits of their house are that cause them the most angst or the most stress.
Claire, where are the bits of your house that cause you the most stress?
It's the kitchen. The kitchen is always a mess. And we've got quite a big kitchen, to be fair. But it doesn't help because I'm quite a hoarder and I collect little bits and pieces, little trinkets. And so it's quite difficult because obviously over the years you just collect more and more. And it's like, no, I don't want to chuck that out. It means something. So I do find that really difficult.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a difference between like mess and being tidy. Obviously we can clean the kitchen, but actually, there is a lot of stuff there too.
Yeah. So what about if you have things that are precious to you and you don't want to throw away? What can you do with those?
So I think it's one of those things, I would say you need to start off with things that aren't sentimental.
Okay.
So let's say you start off with your knives and forks or your wooden spoons or your chopping boards. So if we're using it in a kitchen context, start getting into the idea of what do I actually use really frequently? What are my go-tos? When I open a drawer, what's the mug I always pick first? And it gets to the point where the more you have and the more space you have, the more you fill. And then the more stuff you have, the more overwhelming it is because it takes longer to put away. If you've got, I've worked with clients and they've had like 50 different mugs. And when you're then sorting through the mugs cupboard, you're like, oh, well, which is your, I only ever really use that mug. And then that's the one that my mum uses when she comes to stay, but she only comes kind of, once a year. So then you think, well, does that really need to be front and centre in the cupboard, or well, these are the ones that I have for when builders come round, or you've got excuses, not excuses, but there are reasons for everything. But actually, if you can streamline it, everything just becomes easier because there's less of the overwhelm. You're not, if you've got 50 mugs, where's your incentive to wash them up, to put them away? And then they end up spreading around your house, and then there's mugs in every room, but there's not a clean mug for you to use. But if you think, if I had 8 mugs, and realistically, unless you're hosting a coffee morning every week or you're running a bed and breakfast, you probably don't need more than 8 mugs.
I'm freaking out a bit now because I've got quite a few mugs in my
I have too.
Maybe mugs is a sensitive topic. Start with knives and forks, knives and forks.
I think the secret with mugs is to buy mugs that will stack into each other so you can have 2 sort of like, because then it doesn't look quite as many.
Yeah.
That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I don't like stacking them too much because I think they're going to fall over. When I go to my cupboard sometimes and they're all stacked up, I'm like, oh, there's just not enough room. But it's just because they've been brought as presents and stuff, so you don't want to get rid of them. But as you say, there is only probably 2 or 3 that I use.
Yeah. So the other thing to think about with mugs is they make really good pen pots.
Yeah.
They are really good if you are doing some baking or something, having a mug that lives, let's say, next to the oats or next to the flour that you can use for measuring out rice. There are ways in which if you've got a sentimental mug but you want to use it, you don't necessarily need to use it as a mug.
Because you can buy mugs for absolutely every family celebration, can't you? You can get Mother's Day mugs and you can get sort of like anniversary mugs and you can get Easter mugs and the temptation is to just keep buying mugs, sort of adding for an item because it's easy, but you're not actually doing anybody a favour, or you're not by buying mugs.
I love a gift that is more of an experience.
Okay.
And I think buying something that's perhaps less of a tangible thing, maybe we need to start thinking about, instead of buying someone a mug, why not make them some dinner, or make them a cake, or make them something that's consumable, or say that you will offer to do some babysitting for someone, or it's those sorts of things, rather than, we live in a world now where it's so easy to buy stuff. And it's one of those things that it's just creating clutter potentially in other people's houses or in your own house. So
So don't buy stuff. Top tip number 1. Don't buy stuff.
Or sort of send things with love.
Yeah.
But they don't need to be physical things, because actually sometimes, just calling someone for a chat or taking them out for a coffee, maybe go out for a coffee rather than buying a mug with that person.
Yeah. Cool. And I think storage is key, isn't it? Having enough and the right sort of storage and not filling it up.
Yeah.
Is that,
So I would always say with storage, don't buy the storage until you've done a sort out, because you can very easily go, I've got so much stuff, I need to buy more storage. But actually, probably what you need to do is sort through what you've got and then sort out the storage based on the slightly edited version of what you've got. Otherwise, you're going to end up with your house looking like an IKEA showroom, and still running out of space, and it's still feeling messy because there's so much stuff.
I love an IKEA Kallax storage unit.
I think every house has had an IKEA Kallax storage unit at some point.
Oh gosh!
Can I just say, I've never been to IKEA.
What?
Never
What?
Been.
To plan a trip.
I just thought I'd chuck that in there. I've never been.
Can we do that? Can we go and
we should do
maybe
like
our
a
next
Spark on tour?
Yeah, Spark on tour and other
places
storage facilities are available.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But oh my word. That's freaked me out a little bit as well, actually, yeah.
But I do love home bargains.
Oh right, yeah.
You can stay. That's fine.
Thanks.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Where were we? Storage. Yeah, absolutely. So what if you go and support somebody with sorting sort of like their stuff, what sort of percentage of stuff do you end up getting rid of? Or is it just purely individual?
It will totally depend. And it also seems to depend on what space you're in, and obviously on how much stuff they have.
Yeah.
I will always try and give people pointers as to how to edit stuff down, but I would never say to anyone they have to throw anything away. This is totally a personal choice as to if they want to keep everything.
Yeah.
Then obviously it's not been a wonderful use of employing me. But it is just about helping people to realise what they really love, what they really use. And if that's the case, and if they use everything, then,
Is it then organisation that's
and
the
then
key?
it's organisation and about layout.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
sometimes if someone is in a kitchen and they feel that their kitchen really stresses them out and it's hard to work in, you realise that the way in which it's laid out, they open 4 different cupboards in order to make themselves a cup of tea.
Yeah.
And if you make little tweaks to where things are located in the kitchen and what things you group together,
Yeah.
then it can make things just feel much more straightforward.
Yeah. Cool. Does that sound like something you can do in your kitchen?
Yes. I'll try. It's just getting, I think it's not so much time, it's just getting the inclination to do it, just thinking, right, it's got to be done. Once I'm in the zone to do it, I can do it, but it's just kind of, I think like you said before, it can all seem a bit overwhelming. Yeah. And so you just kind of like put it off or make excuses, I haven't got time today, I'll do it another day. And then it just builds up. So, yeah.
But I definitely think if you start with just that, right, whilst dinner is in the oven, I'm going to tackle this one drawer. And if you get on to doing 2 drawers or you do another cupboard, then brilliant. But if you set yourself up to, I'm going to tackle the whole kitchen, you might just get to the point where I feel it always gets worse before it gets better. So I would always recommend taking everything out of the cupboard. But if you do that with your entire kitchen, you are going to feel like you're in total chaos because it's amazing how much stuff accumulates in those cupboards. Yeah. So sort out one drawer, sort out one cupboard, but take everything out, give it all a good clean because that's also a really nice feeling. And then check the dates on stuff, try and group like things together. I'm not a massive fan of going out and buying lots of extra storage for the sake of storage. Right. But equally, if you have got, I call it the 2-touch rule. Okay. So if you are opening a cupboard and you need to get something, you should only have to move like one other thing in order to be able to get what you need.
Okay.
So sometimes putting things in a box and putting the box of stuff that you use most regularly, let's say like water bottles, put a box with all your water bottles in, and then when you pull the box out, you could have the things behind it that you use less. So rather than having to individually move 6 different water bottles for everyone in your family, you've got one box, you take it out, you can get the bits that are behind it. And that's the idea of just, it's little things like that that make a bit of a difference to how the space works.
That's cool. And you talked about sort of cleaning being a good feeling. Is there a lot of sort of like feelings and emotions wrapped up in sort of like the stuff that you do?
Yeah, I think so. Lots of my clients have said that they struggle with the sort of mental load of running a house, having a family, those sorts of things. So anything you can do in order to kind of streamline things, get systems in place just to reduce that stress and the sort of mental clutter, it massively helps.
Yeah. So what are some sort of like motivational tactics to get on and do stuff? And I know do a little bit at a time, but you mentioned, Claire, loud music and stuff like that. Does that help? Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
No, I did. I love music and it's really good for my mental health as well because it just gets me into that zone where I can kind of like, it just quiets the noise in my head basically because you just fill it with music. And it's just upbeat, it keeps you moving anyway, so naturally you just want to, do something with that. But I've always done that, even when I was like a teenager, tidying up your bedroom, you put on your music and you did it because you just got, and I suppose that just kind of filters on to, as you get older. So put on loud music, something really upbeat, and have a little disco while you're doing it. Dancing around your kitchen, I'm
Nothing
really
like
not...
a kitchen disco.
No, absolutely.
Party for one. I'm all for it. I've done it loads of times. We get overlooked by students. And it's like, do you know what? Don't care. I'm in my house. So, I'm getting in that zone to do it.
Yeah. I think sometimes there's also that element of having someone else with you is really helpful. Now, it is wonderful if your partner also wants to help you, but doesn't tend to work very effectively. It sort of means that people are going, oh, well, no, I gave you that. Well, you can't throw that away. And then all of a sudden you've got someone else's emotions kind of on top of it. But if you have a trusted friend and you say, look, I could just really do with a little bit of moral support. Can you come and I'll make you a cup of tea and we can have a chat. And at the same time, if you don't mind, I'm just going to do a bit of sort out, or I want to sort through my wardrobe, go through my clothes. Can you give me an honest opinion of what you think suits me or, fits? And it's that idea of having just someone else as a sounding board to go, actually, do you know, that brown top that you wore last week wasn't very flattering, but that orange one that you've got's lovely and that's really your colour. And I think having that honest person supporting you is really beneficial.
Yeah.
So when you're coming round for tea then, Sandie?
I'll tell you what, you look rubbish in, Claire. Don't you worry about a thing.
Honesty.
Actually, I've noticed since I started working at Spark, because we have Spark clothing and stuff, I hardly ever wear anything else in my wardrobe now. So I'll be able to get rid of loads of stuff. It'll be fab. It'll be great. I know particularly clothing, and I'm going to own this statement. I have bought a lot of mistake clothes that I've gone, oh, that's amazing, and I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to wear. But because I've spent money on it and I've never worn it, that bit about thinking, well, I'm just going to get rid of it is really tough to do.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to think that once you've actually spent the money is gone.
Okay.
So you're never going to get probably the same amount of money back for it. Equally, if it's sitting in your wardrobe and you're never going to wear it, no one is going to come up to you and say, oh, I heard that you've got that green dress that's in your wardrobe. I'm actually really looking for a green dress. If I give you £5, can you give me that green dress? But I am a huge believer in taking things to the charity shop and giving them a second lease of life through that. Or Vinted is another amazing one. And I've helped a few clients get to grips with Vinted and they are now totally flying with it. And I get little updates of, I've sold another £300 worth of stuff on Vinted.
Oh, wow.
Just listing stuff for reasonable amounts of money. It adds up and then you can treat yourself not to buying more stuff.
Okay.
But you could treat yourself to an experience perhaps or, maybe saving up to buy the paint that you might want to redecorate the room that you've just decluttered. So it's those sorts of things which can be really good.
Yeah.
But most people, I think the statistic is most people wear 20% of their wardrobe 80% of the time.
Yeah.
We all know what we wear on a regular basis and it's lovely to have different things.
Yeah.
But equally, if you're never going to wear them or they don't fit, they're only cluttering up your wardrobe and it gets to the point you open your wardrobe, it's really overwhelming. You think, I don't know what I'm going to wear today. And then you automatically reach for, pair of jeans and a T-shirt.
Yeah, definitely. Is this the point where we promote the Spark charity shop thing or retail opportunity?
Yeah, and we've got Vinted.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do our own Vinted line.
Yeah, so if anybody listening to this is thinking, I'm going to sort my wardrobe, we are always open for donations, aren't we?
What a lovely natural tangent that we've gone on to.
Just a little plug.
Yeah. So you mentioned your 2-touch rule for kitchen cupboards. Do you have any other sort of like rules that you try and, or guidelines maybe?
Yeah, pick it up, put it away. So if you are picking something up because it's in the wrong place, instead of moving it to a different place, just go and put it away.
Okay.
And I'm trying desperately to teach my children that same rule. And the idea that they need to notice things, because that's one of the other things that I think particularly women struggle quite a lot with, is this idea of the mental load, that you are overwhelmed by the thought processes and the making decisions and the reminding people to do things and who needs what PE bag for school and what snacks are in ready for the children to take for lunch and all those sorts of things. If you can instill from an early age your kids making their beds, helping unload the dishwasher or putting washing away, even putting their washing in the washing machine, those are all things that are very straightforward actually for really young children to do. And those sorts of things can just help chip away at the sort of emotional overwhelm that particularly women can face.
And actually it's instilling good habits into the children as well so that they will grow into tidy adults, hopefully. Do you think that some people are naturally messy? Shall we get into the nature and nurture?
Yeah, nature, nurture. I think it's interesting when I've spoken to clients, because sometimes they will say, my parents were really minimalist and they had nothing, and it makes them want stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how they are now in a situation where they've perhaps feel overwhelmed with the amount of stuff. And you've got the other extreme of people saying, oh, we lived in a really big house, but it was really messy and or it was really full of stuff. And so that's just how I'm used to living.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there seem to be different poles. But, yeah, I don't think there's not a hard and fast rule as to why people
many different minds.
I think there are lots of different
that.
backgrounds. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah. I've got to be honest, I need, if I'm doing something, I do need to have a clear space. And so if I'm doing something, I'll spend quite a lot of time tidying the area, nesting, sort of like getting everything ready before I can do something. But I know that other people thrive on or don't mind if stuff's around the place. So it's in a working team, it's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? Because I keep going around tidying up.
Yeah, Sandie does. Yeah, all the time, and especially the volunteer table or the office. You put something down and, yeah, Sandie's tidied it up.
So you've got to be gentle with me because that's what I need to do. I need to do it.
But we know where it is because it's messy. And my daughter said something this morning and she said, because she struggles tidying her room. And but she said, I know where everything is. She said, if you came in and tidied it up, that would really, mess with her because she wouldn't know where things are. So, but in her mind, it's tidy, but it isn't. So she finds it really difficult because she just kind of thrives in the mess.
Yeah. That's interesting that some people, so she thinks it's tidy when you don't think it is. Are there levels of tidiness and what people sort of like?
And I think it's totally down to personal preference. But most of the debates that people have, it's because then they've perhaps got to a level of tidiness that they like, but they can't understand why other people don't have that same sort of almost cut off of what is understood to be tidy. So, it's about finding a happy medium. And also there comes a point where you think, right, well, I'm actually not going to worry about my child's bedroom because that's their space. Yep. But the communal areas, we all need to agree on what is an appropriate level of how we can live. And if you think back to when kids are at school, they are told to tidy up at the end of the day. So actually, they're having these sorts of things instilled in them from a really early age. There's no reason why they couldn't do the same thing at home. Yeah. Quite often, it's actually the overwhelm for them as well. If they've got loads of toys, then they'll get them out and they'll play with them, but they're actually a bit distracted because they've seen something else out of the corner of their eye, so they'll get that out as well. So sometimes I would advocate just doing a bit of a sort out and maybe putting half of the toys in some form of box or storage and then actually removing them from eyesight, so putting them at the top of a shelf and let those kids play with 50% of the toys. They'll really enjoy playing with those. And then in a month's time, swap the toys round. And it's as if they're getting brand new toys. What it's like after Christmas. Sometimes it's really overwhelming, or birthdays, because they get loads of stuff. Well, actually, if you put half of those away, bring them out in a couple of months' time, they're going to have so much more appeal because they're new and exciting.
Yeah. So it is that bit about it. It's not necessarily tidiness. It's that clutter, moving the clutter around or organising the clutter and making it work.
And I think about having less available.
Yeah.
You don't have to get rid of everything, but just sort it out so that it's not all there all the time.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing with if you have got, if you're looking in your wardrobe, I am a massive advocate of having wintry clothes and summery clothes. And so trying to do vacuum bags are amazing at, once you've got stuff that's not in season, we probably don't all need to be keeping a selection of swimwear and sarongs and stuff for this tropical weather that we're having at the moment. So remove the stuff that you're really unlikely to wear in the next couple of months and pop it in a vacuum bag, pop it at the top of your wardrobe, and then you've got more space to be actually see what you've got.
Yeah, that's really good. That's another top tip, isn't it?
That's another top tip.
Excellent
Full of
stuff.
them today.
Yes, you really are. Yeah. Give us another one. What's another one?
The other one I would say is that paperwork tends to be something that people find really overwhelming. So before I set up my business, I have been a teacher, so that's quite a lot of paperwork. I've also been a personal assistant. So that's other people's paperwork. And I would say you can have paperwork in a box. So much now is available online, and it's really easy to search through in your inbox. So sort out your folders in your inbox and start getting into the habit of filing things. But you do not need to be keeping paperwork from 10, 15, 20 years ago. If you have almost like A4 plastic wallets, I would say, one for, let's say, the car, one for home stuff, one for health stuff, one for children's stuff, and you just pop things as they come through, pop the relevant things in, and every now and then have a little flick through and just go, oh, actually, that's out of date now. I don't need that one. Shred it, bin it, burn it, recycle it, whatever, but just little and often. And you can do that like when you're watching TV in the evening, just do a quick sort out.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be really overwhelming.
And that helps if people have to sort out personal effects and things like this and find insurance policies and stuff like this. Yeah. Do you keep paper, Claire?
Yeah, I think I've got loads from God knows how many years. I find that difficult as well. Because again, it's like once you go through it takes so much time because you've got so much there. And like I have a corner for where I put my paperwork. My husband's got a cupboard where he puts his. So it kind of like just gets like put away until it gets too high and I've got no choice but to sort it. But I think it's that thing, I've got paperwork from God knows how many years ago. Mm-hmm. And you think, I'll keep that just in case because it's important. But a lot of things have gone paperless, like a lot of, bank statements. Obviously now you can do paperless. So we did do that as much as possible because otherwise it just gets too much. And again, because you open, even with junk mail, you just open it, put it on the side and it just gets tidied up and just put on the pile. So... I'm looking rather guilty of hoarding quite a lot, actually. You're going to find me on one of those hoarding programs soon.
There's no judgment. You will have so many skills and hopefully lots of motivation at the end of this session.
I'm just too busy.
But I think that's one of the massive things that we're all up against these days is that we are really, really busy people. Yeah. And gone are the days where people would sit at home or go to a 9-to-5 job, they'd come home, they'd cook dinner. Now we're all rushing around and we're trying to do all of the things and be all of the things. Yeah. So it's really hard to prioritise that sometimes. Yeah.
What are you going to prioritise then, Claire? What are you going to do when you go on?
Definitely paperwork. I know that's one I've got to do because that's getting quite high. But I think you made a really good point about and I know you can get apps now as well that help you organise and just say maybe do one room at a time, concentrate on one room a week. I have seen apps like that before, which I think are quite a good idea. I probably wouldn't stick to them. I mean, I'm defeatist already. But I think it's having that mindset to say, right, I am going to tackle it. Mm-hmm. And as you say, even if you don't do the whole of the kitchen, just do, a kitchen cupboard a week, because eventually it will all get done.
Yeah. Because with paperwork, it's that bit about if it's something that's got my personal information on it, I can't just throw it away or recycle it or whatever. And so I ended up having a great big pile of stuff ready to shred. Mm-hmm. And I would never, ever get round shredding anything because it's messy and it's noisy and you have to empty it and all the rest of it. But you can get a little sort of like a little roller machine which blocks out your personal information. It's
really?
It's great. Oh, wow. If you just go...
and it's I've not even heard of that.
It's just amazing. Like stamps that where I'm doing this.
Like a librarian stamp.
Yeah, like a librarian stamp, but
that.
It rolls across and it sort of like inks over all of your personal details. So I then don't have to shred it. I can just recycle it. Oh. It's wonderful. That's the best thing I've bought ever.
It's going to be the first thing that I do.
Oh, I'll buy you a present. No, I can't buy you a present, can I not?
You could lend it to her.
I could lend...
If you lend it to her, then she'll be really motivated to do it within like a week
because she's got to give it back.
Sneaky.
So that's another key, is it? Sort of like lend stuff out and borrow stuff.
And I think this idea of, again, going back to like kitchen, if you have something which you hardly use, is there, if you were to get rid of it and free up that space in your kitchen,
Yeah.
is there someone who you could borrow that from?
Yeah.
You know, we've
Yeah.
all got things that we only use maybe once a year, like a cake stand or a platter. Well, how many times would your neighbour say, oh, I've got something you can borrow for that? Or like
Yeah.
a giant Tupperware box that you use for transporting a birthday cake. You know, those sorts of things, they're quite niche. They do
Yeah.
take up quite a lot of space. If you're not using them on a regular basis,
Yeah.
would that space be better used for something else?
That's really cool, because there is in the Cascades in Portsmouth, there's Share Portsmouth have got a library of things.
Yeah.
Libraries of things are great,
Yeah,
aren't
really
they?
good
So,
idea.
Yeah. So you could donate something to that, and then you can borrow it back whenever you need it. Really,
And someone else is storing it for you.
Oh,
Total win.
absolutely. So the whole hoarding bit, is that different from decluttering? If sort of like if people are actually hoarding.
Yeah, so hoarding is that sort of, it's a different mentality potentially than just feeling like you're overwhelmed with clutter. Because if you are hoarding, chances are you are thinking of like a worst case scenario. Like if I had no money tomorrow, then I need to hold on to all of these things. Now, if you had no money tomorrow, chances are you still don't need 45 skirts that might be hanging up in your wardrobe. But it's probably more of the like psychology behind it as to why people buy stuff. Is it because they just have really easy access to stuff? Because
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
order something,
Yeah.
you know, I could have ordered something last night. It could be delivered to my door this morning.
Today. Yeah.
So it's that sort of like mindset. But I do think once you've done a really good declutter and a sort out and you've got less stuff, you actually tend to find that you rethink your spending. You're almost retraining your brain. So if you've known how much time and energy has gone into sorting things out, you think, oh, actually, I don't really need that extra
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And there are little things that you can do which just stop, which can minimise the sort of tendency to buy stuff. So a lot of people have got things like Apple Pay on their phone. Actually, if you remove that from your phone, if you are reaching into your wallet to get out cash or to get out a card, it's that idea of mindful spending.
Okay.
In a similar way, if you were to remove some apps that you use for shopping on your phone, you can still use them because you could go through the website,
Yeah.
but it's that sneaky shortcut that makes everything so easy and can be a slippery slope to you having more stuff coming into your house than you're actually mindful of.
Okay. So it is that pause a bit until, if you like
You know,
something.
it's okay to spend money,
Yeah.
but just make sure you're not wasting it on something. Like, do you have something that's very similar? Could you borrow whatever you're about to buy from someone else? You know, could you go into a charity shop and see if you can pick it up for £2 rather than spending £20 on something?
Or in the Spark charity shop on Saturday, we've got a 50p sale.
Another plug.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I suppose if you declutter, you know what you've got as well. So if I see something in the shop, I'll think, oh no, I've got something like that at home because I'm aware of what I've got.
Yeah.
And
And little things like, I will always try and do, probably like every couple of months, I will do a bit of a sort out in the freezer. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how much treasure you find in there that you think, oh yeah, I'd forgotten I'd done such and such.
Yeah.
And then actually you think, well, if I combine that with a few vegetables, then I've got a meal sorted and it's ready. And it's a nice thing, you know, before you're going away or you're having a really busy week, just do a quick little, almost like take an inventory of what's in there and see if you can spend, we do it as a challenge, like an eat the freezer week. And the kids will get quite enthusiastic about, oh, what are we going to have tonight? I said, well, I've got some chicken, I've got some peas, what do you fancy? And then all of a sudden, just with a few other fresh ingredients, you can use something up and you're not then leaving things to fester in the cupboard.
that's cool. Do you get lucky dips when you're not quite sure what it is in the bag and just sort of like open it up and see what you get?
Every now and then I'm looking at something and I'm like, is it mashed potato?
Yeah.
Is it cheese sauce? Could it be mashed banana? I don't really know. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Cool. So we've done kitchen, we've done wardrobe, we've done paperwork.
Yeah.
Is there what other areas are there that we can be tackling?
I mean, this is when you've really trained yourself and you've
Okay.
worked yourself up.
Okay,
But
okay.
doing like loft space.
Oh,
because that tends to get to the point where people have put sentimental things away.
Yeah.
So it might be like your children's clothes,
Yeah.
birthday cards, Mother's Day cards, those sorts of things.
Oh, I
that
used to
you've
keep
been-
cards, and then I thought, what am I doing keeping cards? It's bonkers. It really is. Yeah. Recycle them.
But I think you get to the point where, so I've worked with clients and they've kept every single card that their child has ever received for a birthday, which is lovely.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether, and this is what I will say to them, if you were to present your child with that box of stuff age 25 when they've potentially moved home, what would their reaction be? Would it be, why on earth have you given me this? I've got no space for it. I don't want it. I don't want a card from my next door neighbour that just says, "Dear John, from Brenda."
Yeah.
That's, if it's a really sentimental card that's got beautiful things written in it, then by all means keep it and keep it in a special box. I'm not saying get rid of everything, but, edit out the really precious things, because otherwise you are going to get to the point where it all becomes overwhelming to the next generation of people.
Yeah.
In a similar way, if you're keeping kids' artwork, if it doesn't have a date on it, and it doesn't have the child's name on it, or you can't really work out what it is, then it's probably, chances are, you don't actually need to be keeping that. Whereas keep something that's really lovely and tell them that they did this when they were 3 years old and they were an absolute genius, because you can really tell that it was a red fire engine, and that's exactly what it is, even though it might just be a red blob. But it might be their first red blob that they've done on a page. But if you know the date and the child, then you know who you're passing it on to, and they also think, oh, it's nice that my parents have kept that.
Yeah.
But you don't need to keep everything,
No.
because
no.
chances are they're not going to have enough house space
No,
and you're just
absolutely.
passing it on to someone else.
Cool. Is it worth taking photographs of things like this? Because it used to be that we have, I used to have boxes and boxes of photographs, whereas now photographs are kept on a device somewhere, on a laptop and things like this. Is it worth photographing things like that and keeping them?
So I think that's a total personal preference.
Right.
I think when it comes to artwork, personally, I think there's something really lovely about the actual physical thing. And if you are going to take photographs of every single piece of artwork and then you're potentially going to put them in a book, again, what's going to happen to all of these books? Would you be better? Every year, let's say at the end of the academic year, your child comes home with all of their school books and you think to yourself, right, I'm just going to keep them all, because you never know when my child wants to look back through their year 3 science book. Chances are they are not going to want to look through their year 3 science book, but maybe there was a project or a piece of work that they're particularly fond of. And it's that idea of, let's say, every summer holiday, you do a bit of a revisit. And you might not revisit the stuff that they've just brought home, because that all still feels a bit fresh. But if you look back through last year's science work, you could actually say to your child, let's have a look through. What was your favourite piece of work that you did? And all of a sudden, you're not keeping 15 different books and boxes of stuff. You're keeping maybe 2 or 3. And 2 or 3 is a manageable amount per child per year.
Yeah.
That's...
So loft area next. What do you think?
No, I don't even entertain the loft. My husband goes up there. I don't like heights either. So I kind of say that's not my area. It's all the Christmas stuff up there mainly we put up there. But I think it's a really good point about chucking stuff away, like cards. I find that really difficult. I've probably got cards from like 10, 15 years ago, or things that my children have done. I mean, I know in my kitchen, I keep going back to my kitchen, but like on top of the cupboard, stuff that they've made, like a rocket out of cereal boxes and stuff that's just collecting dust. But I'm like, I can't chuck it away. I do find stuff like that really difficult. Again, I think it's the whole sentimental thing I find. I just can't chuck it away. It's like I'm chucking a piece of them away. I know it's not.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I find it really difficult. And I've probably got some stuff that my son did, and he's 25 now. and he'd go, "Well, have you still got that?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, but you made that." And we're like, a lot of love went into that. But he would just probably shake his head at me, as he always does. But yeah, I do find stuff like that difficult. And I think quite a lot of people do when your kids have made it.
Yeah, definitely. But I think sometimes you need to think, you still have those memories and you will still remember that, even if you don't have the physical thing. It's sort of like severing those ties. Severing sounds really brutal, but in general, you will have the memories, and it's whether the thing that you are keeping takes up. If it's a card, it doesn't take up very much space, but would that space be better used for something else if it's a great big rocket ship that's sitting on top of your kitchen cupboard? Just saying. Not that I don't love a rocket ship, but also top
You two
tip.
are just jealous you haven't got a rocket ship in your
I really am.
kitchen
Really am.
cupboard.
Yeah.
Well, my son is 5, so he's very much still in the process of making lots of big
You
things
will have
out
a
of-
rocket ship.
Oh,
You will, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I was really thrilled when his school were doing a castles project.
Oh.
And my husband found him a really lovely big cardboard box to take in to make his cardboard castle. And it came back really, I'm quite an artistic person, I like to think. I'm not sure my children have developed that kind of passion yet. So when it came back as a castle, it very much still looked like a few cardboard boxes taped together. And then I saw some of these other children who were coming back with. So the top tip is that if your child needs to take in some form of recycling, try and give them small bits like toothpaste boxes.
Yeah.
Great for making a castle. Some giant, dishwasher box, not so useful. But the other thing is about how you use them. So we actually put the castle, I handed it over to my in-laws because they have a garden, and so in Portsmouth we don't have huge gardens, but they live a bit further out, and it is now a beautiful hedgehog house.
Oh.
So they cut a hole in the side, so I'm all about repurposing.
Yep.
And, if it lasts a season for a hibernating hedgehog, then that feels really wonderful.
Yeah.
If it then has to get recycled, then that is its destiny.
What can we do with Claire's rocket ship? There must be something we can do with Claire's rocket ship.
I don't know. I quite like my rocket ship.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh.
I think if you love it and it brings you joy, then you are totally within your rights to keep it.
It will probably
okay.
will blast off someday.
It's like kindling for a bonfire.
Yeah.
So is that bit about if it brings you joy, you can keep it? Decluttering isn't about getting rid of everything. It's about going through it and seeing what brings you joy.
Yeah, what brings you joy? So there's a lady called Marie Kondo, and she always talks about if you touch something, does it bring you joy? But also it's that point of sometimes the joy has passed and that moment has passed, and it's okay to say goodbye. And perhaps someone else will get some joy from what it no longer serves you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've got some really, really, we've gone the whole gamut, haven't we, about decluttering and everything. So sum it up for us then. Tell us some of the really top tips and some of the first steps that we can take in decluttering.
So I'd say top things are little and often, chip away at it, and the little wins will help you stay motivated and stay on track. Also, the other thing is just think about, do you love it? Do you use it? Do you really need it? Could you borrow it from someone else? And so it's that idea of editing out so you are just left with the things that you really use and love on a regular basis. What brings you joy?
Wonderful. Thank you ever so much indeed. That's
been lovely.
wonderful.
Thank you so much for having us.
Claire, you can go home to your rocket.
Yeah.
You're keeping your rocket.
I know. I feel like I'm going to be very judged for my rocket.
No, not. No.
If it brings you joy, if it brings you joy.
Yeah.
See, when I go in my cluttered kitchen, I think there's my rocket.
I'm joyful. I'm full of joy.
Yes,
That's
one
really
of my kids made that. Yeah.
brilliant. Thank you ever so much indeed.
you so
and
much.
That's been our Spark Proper Cup of Tea podcast.